thank you everybody for making your way here and listening to my presentation. And special thanks to my supervisor, Marilyn Waring, and to all my potluck teammates. You're awesome. I'm mother in an interethnic relationship. These are my two little boys attending an Anzac commemoration service for those New Zealanders who fought in the wars for ideas they believed in. They wear jerseys hand-knitted by their great-grandmother in a little village in Transylvania. Her husband was forced to fight in a war he couldn't make sense of. When my boys are growing up, which story will I tell them? My thesis is about interethnic mothering, about negotiating between different colors and different languages. One day, my 5-year-old was coloring a frog. "Mommy, I'm going to color the frog green," he said. "Why?" I asked. "You don't have to. It's your frog. You can be creative and color it any color you want it to be." He replied knowingly, "I have to color the frog green. If I don't color the frog green, other frogs won't know it is a frog, and they won't play with it." There are over 50,000 interethnic relationships in New Zealand. And each of mothers parenting in these relationships, thank you so very much, has their own story. My research uses a narrative inquiry approach to find out how mothers in interethnic relationships negotiate colors, language, difference with the other culture and with the world around them. Now, my participants, as myself, come from a time and from a space where normal actually existed. We grew up, we were parented, as was the norm. We learn to continue these behaviors. The frog was green, and we had to color the frog green. Arriving to New Zealand, our norms were not the normal anymore. In our migration journey, we had to apply what we knew to other standards. And our migration journey is full of stories of challenge, stories of regret, stories of wins and losses. My big question was, what methodology, what paradigms do I use to give justice to these stories? I started timidly with ethnography, thinking of the richness of cultural practices that are embedded in these stories. Rituals of giving birth, bonding, naming the child, and so on. Then I felt that the ethnography doesn't really record mothers' agency in assuming or contesting these cultural practices, and how mothers enact this agency in the context of power relations in which they parent. The next choice then was Foucauldian discourse analysis. And then again, I felt that Foucauldian discourse analysis concentrates too much on these power relations and at the expense of the richness of cultural practices that are embedded in these really beautiful stories. So my hopefully final choice is a triangulation of critical theory, feminism, social constructivism. Now, I will attempt to see the world from the vantage point of a particular group of women, which are mothers in interethnic relationships, seeking to uncover the ways in which they negotiate the world and the wisdom inherent in such negotiation. This research is with mothers, for mothers, rather than about mothers, and wields opportunities for the personal to become political. There are three main focal points that critical theory will bring to analyzing and interpreting the stories of mothers in interethnic relationships. Firstly, I will attempt to establish a connection between knowledge and everyday practice of power, questioning the way mothers and significant people around them create reality. Secondly, it will place the stories told by mothers not in a continuing present, but in a continuous process of historical change. Thirdly, it will challenge a status quo, which is patriarchal interpretation of a mother's role, seeking to bring changes in the existing systems. And under social constructivism paradigm, mothering is not that patriarchal concept which set up rules and roles. It is something that mothers construct, negotiate, revisit. I interviewed 15 migrant women parenting in an interethnic relationship. They were born between 1938 and 1985. They are from Europe, Latin America, Middle East, Asia. They came in New Zealand between 1952 and 2012. The majority of them came here because their partner was a New Zealander. Others migrated with their families or came for study or for work. One of the things that these mothers had in common was that English is not their first language. Their first language is Polish, Samoan, Hebrew, Chinese, Spanish, Mandarin, Japanese, Hungarian, German, Bosnian, French, Dutch. So they told me their non-English stories in English. They translated themselves in another language. Now, talking about language, Pavlenko distinguishes 5 aspects of identity subject to negotiation in a multilingual context. And these are linguistic, racial, ethnic, cultural, gender, and social identities. What that means? In my interethnic family, I may pronounce the word food perfectly without any strong accent, which may diminish its comprehension. Like in many other families, it is used quite a lot in my interethnic family. Nevertheless, do we mean exactly the same thing when we use it? Do we have the same food experiences to rely on? Does the word food brings in the same references for my Maori husband and the Romanian I? Certainly not. Food, for me, is to be respected, not to be wasted. It reminds me of huge queues for scarce food, of my mother saving a whole ear sugar for the Christmas cookies, my grandmother magic chicken soup healing you from any nasty cold. Putting food on the table is my mission, and making sure that my family has had enough food. Are you hungry is probably the most repeated sentence in the day. Food is spending days before Christmas or Easter to prepare those dishes with recipes transferred through generations and generations of women. And food is daily cooking calendar, weekly shopping planner, chore and passion, successes and routine. From my husband's stories, food is diving for kina in unspoiled waters, bringing a bucket of pipi for kuya and kaumatua up the hill in Orake. Their tears when they remember how they were forced out of Okahu Bay, their source of food. In a tangi process, food brings one back from the spirit's realms to the tangible world. Food is the buzzing wharekai, the starting karakia, the hangi. Food is to be enjoyed and shared. 2 worlds and so many stories, sharing room in one single word. I asked 15 migrant mothers parenting in interethnic relationships like me to tell me their stories in English. And these are the words they used. There are so many colors, meanings, negotiations, making room within every single word. Let's take family, for example. Under a social constructivism paradigm, family is not that patriarchal concept with set up roles and rules. It is something that mothers construct, negotiate, revisit. Family takes us back to when we first experienced family and modeled its values, behaviors, ways to see the world. Some mothers pursue these values as child-rearing goals and treasure them. Other mothers contest them and reinvent themselves in what they see a liberating New Zealand context. Family is a space where identities are negotiated, where the I woman can easily be hijacked by me mother, me partner, me daughter, and daughter-in-law. Let's talk about I woman. Dear Indian said, I find myself here in this environment in New Zealand which allows you to find yourself. But then there is a missing thread somewhere, and I think that's why that question, why does it mean to be an Indian? And Dia needed this context to refine herself. What about I mother? I remember vividly two stories. I went to pick up my children from Te Punareo. Their friends greeted me. Hello, Mihai and Alex, Mum. And that was it. That shocked me. From that moment, I wasn't Lucia anymore. I wasn't a PhD student. I wasn't any other roles I may perform. I was simply Mihai and Alex's mother. The other experience is quite different. I took my little one to the doctor. The nurse knew myself but didn't know about my family. She was very busy taking notes, and then she looked at us and said, are you looking after him today? And I said, what? I remind you that I am from Romania, my husband is Maori, and my child is kissed by the sun. I asked, what? And she said, you're not his mother. Of course I am. Oh, is he adopted? I just want to tell you that the experience didn't make me angry or upset. It just shocked me that it's not enough to be my son's mother, that I have to spell it out, to explain it, to negotiate it. I mother. There are some voices. There are many voices in mother stories. There are New Zealand models of family, voiced through neighbor, blankets, midwives, school staff, partners who embrace my culture, partners whose culture I embrace, and of course children who color the frog green. In conclusions, there is no one color to describe inter-ethnic mothering in New Zealand. Ethnicity, it's not a box to tick. It is fluid. It can be assumed, it can be contested, it can be revisited in a complex array of negotiation processes. My research aims to empower us mothers and our children to color the frog any color we wish, and to encourage all of you to take these multicolored frogs home and to play with them. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Your presentation reminds me of the question, where do you come from?
I'm from Romania. Yeah, I'm from Romania, and I hope I did bring you a glimpse of that beautiful country. I'm delighted that I answered all your questions. Yeah.
When I asked, did you face any racism from the Maori?
My husband is in the room, so I have to be careful how I respond. I did face now and then a wall. I was very lucky that I have a very a fantastic mother-in-law, and she always supported me. She married into another iwi, so she knew what that means, negotiation with sometimes the differences between two villages in Romania or between two iwi in New Zealand are bigger than between two nations. So she did have to negotiate that, and she was very encouraging and supportive of me, even if I was singing very badly within the Kapahaka group. I did learn to enjoy the fact that a different ethnicity allowed me to make mistakes as well. Something that other women in my whānau couldn't make, I actually could, because I always had the excuse that I'm a foreigner and I'm still in a learning process. I do remember a long time ago I went I slept in a marae. It was work related. It was not even my whānau. And I got up and very proudly I said my pepeha, and proudly saying that I have 2 Maori kids, and an old kuya had a comment about not very positive about inter-ethnic marriages who dilute the blood. However, I have the most respectful and encouraging and supportive whānau, so yeah, I'm very well looked after, but thank you.
Lucia, in some of these interviews, there's a possibility your participants felt vulnerable or emotional, but in the English language couldn't express that. Were there other ways in which you could capture that emotion in the interview?
Some of the times, actually, those emotions were even expressed plainly within the interview setting in English, and I do remember moments when we laughed together, we cried together. I do believe that I love writing, so I didn't go outside of my area of comfort, which is writing, to try to explore those emotions. I think I got quite close using a narrative inquiry approach. I think using stories would show that emotion, even if it's hidden through behind other voices, behind a plot, behind a fairy tale. So I think I got as close as possible, remembering that language is such a negotiating space. Thank you.
What practical outputs do you see emerging from your research in terms of breaking down barriers and improving understandings in educational contexts, for example?
Going back to my story about green frog, I do feel quite a lot put in a box when I go to the doctor, when I go to school, which ethnicity, and that's the ethnicity and I take, and that's the box where I do belong to. I do hope to break that boxing thinking, to allow people to create who they are without thinking that they have to love the Kapahaka because they are Maori, or to act like that because they are Romanian. Yeah, I would like to be all these colors to be seen and accepted and acknowledged. And that means that we won't be talking about colors and outcomes, but about processes and how we feel about it. Which is not too far away from a revolution.
Okay, sorry, we need to allow enough time for everyone to go to the next session. So this concludes Lucia's presentation. On behalf of UPC, I'd like to thank you for your presentation today and a small token of appreciation.
Thank you so much.